Welcome to Ceasefire, where civics meets civility and engagement meets empowerment. Ceasefire is hosted by former Boerne ISD trustee and owner of the Boerne Bookshop, Dale Adams, and by former Boerne City Council member and local insurance agent, Ron Cisneros. Ready, aim, ceasefire.
Good morning, Kendall County. This is Ceasefire. My name is Dale Adams.
And I'm Ron Cisneros.
And today we have a topic that gets thrown around quite a bit. It's developers, bankers, real estate agents. Oh my. Why are they so vilified?
Oh, that's a great question. Why are they so vilified? You know, we got an election going on, and one of the candidates, I'm not going to drop any names, but one of them keeps being cast as a developer or a stooge for the developers. And every time I hear that, I think, well, now wait a sec. I have a home because somebody developed a piece of property. And in fact, my first home in Boerne was built by a local guy who took a lot in Oak Park, cut it into 3 pieces, and built 3 small homes on it. And man, were it not for that guy, I wouldn't have had my first home in Boerne. So the very first time I got credit, 18 years old, my dad took me into a bank to get a loan so I could learn how to manage money, and got my little loan thanks to a banker. And heck, any of the homes that I've ever purchased or any of the properties that I've ever owned, I've had the assistance of a real estate agent by my side to make sure I don't do anything stupid. And so how do these guys become the bad guys all of a sudden?
Especially since we're all developers.
Mm-hmm.
So when we start throwing those around, we all develop them. If you make a garden outside your house, you're a developer. So yeah, I wonder that when we first started talking about this, I started thinking, this is sort of like that show we did on name calling, because people like to make these labels bad, and then they start throwing it around.
Yeah.
It's sort of a 2-step process. And I think it just comes from a desire to stop other people from doing things that you may have an issue with or that aren't being done the way you like.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest part I have with this is because all these people, and what everybody does actually, revolves around their own property and their property rights. The developers build something on their property. The bankers help people develop their property. The real estate agents help people transfer property between each other. And our country's sort of founded on property rights. In Texas, everybody talks about property rights. And when somebody starts vilifying what people do on their property, in the back of my mind, I'm saying, okay, so you're not for private property rights. And I don't think people think of themselves that way, but that's what it basically is.
I think what you just touched on there is a really great point. They don't see themselves that way.
Right.
And so I think what we're talking about is a matter of perspective. So a developer, through his eyes or her eyes, they see growth, they see opportunity. They might take into consideration the housing supply in a given area. And, in fact, nationwide, America has a housing crisis. The demand for housing is greater than the supply.
Yes.
And so developers are only responding to that, right?
Excellent point.
Yeah. And here locally, we see something different. We see a neighborhood disappearing. We see higher taxes. We see, oh my gosh, somebody from California moving in. Or we might see a loss of identity. Or, oh gosh, they're going to clog up the roadways. And so we see something different. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we're anti-growth. Like you said, we don't see ourselves as against property rights. We just see these other things that the developer may not see.
Yes.
Right.
Your point about the housing crisis in America brings up also locally. People are always talking about how it's hard for aspiring young people to settle down here because it's expensive in Kendall County. And that is a function of our housing crisis, that we don't have enough because the market is, the people that can afford it are going to buy it. And if there's not enough supply, then the prices will go up. And that's the case here. So people complain about development should be careful because they're also promoting unaffordability. If you're going to restrict development, then what's there already is going to start having a higher and higher premium for people to be involved.
Yeah. I saw the city manager at my Rotary Club speak a few months ago, and not to pick on him, but he said, hey, the city, this is the direction we want to focus in, and it's commercial development. We want to do that to bolster the sales tax dollars that we receive, for fear that the state, in its mission to get rid of residential property taxes, that might be the only pivot they have to continue to bring money in to operate the city. I understand that. In the same meeting, he stated that, that they were basically putting a lid on residential development, that they weren't interested in any more KB neighborhoods or Lennar or anything of that nature, right? And no more apartments. And I thought, okay, well, that's great, but when you focus on that retail and commercial development, you need employees, and employees need a place to live. And you just stated, you just stated that, we don't want to provide that anymore. And when we say, okay, we're going to restrict that supply, this is just economics 101, then we're saying we're going to restrict something and the price is going to go up.
Yeah.
Is that fair to the 20-something-year-olds? Is that fair to the 30-something-year-olds that are just beginning their families?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to advocate for growth. I can already see the emails coming in, right? Coming. Yeah, here comes the hate mail, But we have to consider that other perspective.
Yeah. You made a point earlier about developers reacting to the environment and incentives. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really good point, because everybody points to developers and say they are the ones that are driving what's happening. Now, they physically do it, which is true, but they also live in an environment, a social and a governmental environment that we have created, the people. We have voted in people to pass certain laws and have certain things be allowed. Mm-hmm. If we don't like what the developer's doing, it's not the developer's fault. They're reacting to the situation. It's the society that we have created. And if you don't want development or some particular development, then the person that you need to be addressing are the government officials. Now, I'm not saying people should be doing that, because I'm against restricting developers from doing random stuff. Mm-hmm. But I find that people a lot of times like to vilify the doer of the final deed rather than the people that have set up the situation. So like the situation you're talking about with the city, we're going to, at some point, we'll have a lot of commercial development within Boerne, according to what they want to do, and not much residential. And then people are going to say, well, there's not enough residential in Boerne. Well, you voted out property taxes, so now they're going to push for getting more sales taxes. People need to understand that the type of society that they're voting in has consequences. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, if you decide that you want to vote in a lot of anti-development stuff, that's going to apply to you too. And you're going to end up having poor roads because there's not enough taxes for the community to take care of the roads, or some other thing along those lines. Okay, for me, freedom is always the best option. Let people do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. But people need to realize when they're saying, oh, not that freedom, maybe, they're restricting a lot more than what they think they are.
Right. Going along with that theme, if you spend any time on Facebook, and I know you don't, and you see the discussion about developers come up, or the latest housing development, or the latest whatever, the newest retailer that's coming in, box store or whatever, and that gets all the hatred going. And somebody will inevitably say, usually more than somebody, lots of somebodies will say, greed. The word greed comes up. Sometimes that's all you see is just the word greed, but other people will expand on that a little bit more. And to that I say, it's not greed. We assume it's greed. Mm-hmm. It's need.
Yeah.
Right. And
which side is pushing it?
Yeah. And honestly, this might sound like a chicken and an egg routine, but what we're saying is that, the developer comes in here and he's speculating. He puts this he buys this piece of property, which in Kendall County is an expensive thing to do, and he puts in all this infrastructure, and he has to deal with the county or the city and all of the bureaucracy. And then you're basically arguing, when you say greed, that this guy is coming in and just completely speculating. Yeah. They don't do that. Now, we might do that. Like maybe Dale Adams decides he wants to open up a bookstore, and he's rolling the dice to see if there's actually a need for it in Boerne.
I did my research. There was need.
Yeah. Oh, yes. and I believe that, and I think actually a lot of businesses do.
Yes.
And when businesses fail, like restaurants are notorious for failing in the first 3 years. A lot of times it's somebody that thinks that, hey, Mom's tacos were so great, and I can turn that into a recipe for a restaurant, and they just weren't well funded.
Unless your mom's Mary.
Yeah, unless you're, yeah.
Then you're right.
Yeah. But somebody like D.R. Horton, for example, they're doing the market research. Lennar, and I'm not trying to get anybody upset. They picked comfort for a reason. That wasn't just some shot in the dark, let's try it out and see if it works. They did the market research. They're responding. The reason they want to be there is they're responding to a need.
Yes.
Right? We may not like that. We may not want Lennar in comfort, but they've done their market research. Yeah. And if they were to build their neighborhood, they would sell out every one of those homes. They would.
Because people want to be there.
Because people want to be there.
And they are moving there. And they're moving to Kendall County. And it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, and on that note, we're going to take a quick break. This is Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We'll be right back. Boerne has its own bookshop. In fact, it's called the Boerne Bookshop. Hi, I'm Dale Adams, inviting you to get lost. Get lost in a good book in our relaxed and casual atmosphere. We have a wide and eclectic selection in the Boerne Bookshop. We pride ourselves on finding what you're looking for. We do author meet and greets, host writing workshops, and can connect you with a good book club. And your young ones will absolutely love our kids section at the Boerne Bookshop. And while we want you to get lost, we're easy to find, as we're in the heart of Boerne at the back of the Richter Tavern building. We are the Boerne Bookshop. Welcome back to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. We're talking about developers, bankers, real estate agents, and their vilification. And a lot of times you brought up that people talk about it in terms of greed and how they're always greedy and taking things from people and wanting money. And that sometimes bothers me because in a consensual society, which I hope that we live in, every transaction benefits both parties more than if they hadn't done it. So Lennar builds a house, somebody buys a house. That person pays money for that house. That house is worth more to them to live in than that money was. So they end up better off. Lennar builds that house and gets that money, but they were able to build it a little bit cheaper than that money. So they ended up with more money after the process than they had before. So both sides actually end up in a superior position materially. And so this issue about greed bothers me because it implies that one side is benefiting to the detriment of the other side. And yes, sometimes one side will benefit more than the other side, but both sides end up better than they were before. Right. And we need to recognize that.
Right. Let's pivot over to bankers for a moment because we've done a lot about developers. Let's talk about those banker guys.
Oh, who take all our money, right?
Yeah, with their little walking sticks and their Monopoly hats and everything, their monocles.
Did you know that there's a college, in the Northeast somewhere, and their mascot is that banker? And they're always trying to get rid of it, but the old alumni won't let them get rid of it.
You read that in the Wall Street Journal. That's a high school in Massachusetts somewhere. They're the.
That was hilarious.
I forget what their mascot is. And
it's the banker guy. With that top hat.
Yeah, but they have a name. The school has a name, and the Millionaires.
The Millionaires. That's right.
They're the Millionaires. Which I think would be kind of cool.
Why not? It's aspirational.
Yeah.
Hey, so can I share something?
Yeah.
So you said monocle. But the monocle is not on Monopoly guy; it's on the Mr. Planter's peanut guy. But because of that, what's the effect called? There's a word for it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That you think that there's a monocle on there, but there's not.
Yeah,
it's Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut, who represents big peanuts. He's part of that evil nut industry. Why are we talking about him? Like he just cornered the market on nuts, man.
Rich get richer.
Well-needed laugh. Now let's go back to bankers. Man. We had a banker in here a while back that talked to us about the importance of banking in the local economy. And I think part of the problem with banks and bankers is they're dealing with something that we can't physically grasp. A home builder builds a product, you see it, right? Yeah. The carpenter builds cabinets, you see it. The banker, I think, and even the real estate agent, I'll tie them into this. They're sort of middlemen. I'm sort of, as an insurance broker, I'm a middleman. And so we take a lot of heat. People think that they get in the way and then they drive up costs. Yeah. But they actually provide a very important need in our community.
Right. They are the machinery behind how our society functions. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we couldn't trade money for each other and transfer money all over the place to get what we want, we'd have to be trading our pigs for somebody's yarn someplace. And it just doesn't work. That kind of society doesn't function to the level that we have come to expect. I mean, all the innovation we have requires that infrastructure of payments and transfers and transactions. Mm-hmm. And it has to be there. Yeah. And so people don't sometimes realize that.
Right. And sometimes, my dad always taught me that you can be a man at work for money or have money work for man. Mm-hmm. I think he said it more eloquently than I just did. And so there are times when you want to do something in your business and you've got the money to do it, but it's earning interest for you. It's working for you, right? Yeah. And you can borrow money at a lower interest rate, right, than what you're earning in your investments, and that's when the banker comes into play. That's the guy that gives you the ability, the guy or gal that gives you the ability to go out and make investments in your community.
Right. Or your money is already invested in the building or your inventory or your processes, or you have to keep a certain amount of working capital. So our money's doing stuff all the time. Mm-hmm. And sometimes if you want a new idea, you need to go to somebody and say, hey, can you help me out? Yeah. And they're happy to do that. That's their function.
Yeah. I think on a national level, we get caught up with stories that we might read in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal about Lehman Brothers or, all the latest stuff going on at JPMorgan with some of those higher-ups and the weird allegations going on there. And so we somehow bring that down into the local level and just write them all off as evil.
Well, yes, and that is so common. And that happens with the developers also. There are bad apples in every industry. Mm-hmm. You can't find an industry that doesn't have bad apples. It's everywhere, and trying to tarnish an entire industry based on the bad apples is ridiculous, because then you end up capable of tarnishing everybody and everything, and what's the point of that?
Right. Yeah, you're not a big fan of Barnes & Noble, are you?
I used to go there all the time. Everybody serves a purpose. I have people come in all the time saying how they don't like Amazon and they don't want to shop there, and I don't really say much, but Amazon serves a purpose.
Right.
And I buy stuff from there, and lots of people do, and they wouldn't be as successful as they are if they didn't do something that people really wanted done. Yeah. And you can buy anything there,
That reminds me of a conversation you and I had before. Go over to the bookstore for a moment. You've got a wide selection of books and a small footprint, and you have Bibles. But you don't have every possible biblical translation that's out there. Yeah. And there are Christian bookstores that specialize in that. And I think you, and some people might find this hard to believe, you would actually welcome another bookstore in town that could take that pressure off of you and provide that niche.
Yes, I actually think Boerne would support a Christian bookstore, and I think it would be awesome if one moved here, because there's so much there and so many alternatives that I can't meet them all. Yeah. I mean, I'll order whatever somebody wants, but I can't supply what I think the community would be able to use. Yeah.
So let's use this as a segue to get into real estate agents, because they get vilified too. And I think often they're blamed for selling out Kendall County. But the real estate agent is only listing what somebody else, a property owner, brings to them.
Right.
And they're only showing what a customer, somebody else who has the need and says, I need to find a home in Boerne. So they're only providing a service to that person who's already expressed a desire to live here.
Right. So the real estate agent actually is the protector of our property rights. Mm-hmm. Because the fundamental aspect of our property rights is, can we sell it? Not just can we do what we want on it, but can we sell it to somebody else so that we go do something else? And real estate brokers are the ones that facilitate that. And if we smothered them or restricted them in ways, that would directly, immediately impact all of our property rights. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to call them heroes, but I think they provide a very important part of our freedoms.
Right. I've owned several homes, but, honestly, it's not, I don't buy homes like I buy Adidas sneakers or cars, right? So I don't remember all of the steps, all the things that you should do, right? And that's what I like about working with a realtor, is, somebody that guides you, holds your hand, takes you through the process, makes sure that you're doing everything correctly, that you're protected.
Yes.
When you're buying or selling, I think they provide a valuable service.
Absolutely. In a lot of countries, it's incredibly hard to sell a piece of property. It could take years and years for that process to go through. I don't know why, but it does.
Yeah.
And here we've gotten to the point where, yes, it's still painful, but but it's a lot better than it is most places.
So here's a big question for you. And I was thinking, there was an article I read, I want to say it was National Review. The title had something to do with how Americans celebrate entrepreneurs and innovators, but at the same time, they
can't get too big.
Yeah, well, they can't get too big, but they also fear things. So, for example, we're the country that has given the world AI, and we're also the same people that are like, oh my gosh, this thing is evil. We got to shut it down, right? We create things, and then we hate the things that we create. So, thinking about developers, real estate agents, and bankers, do we just hate success?
That's a really good question. Yeah. These are different groups of people, but I think there are definitely groups of people that want to stir people up against others, that like to divide people. And so when somebody's successful, it's easy to point at them and start saying bad things about them. When James Avery came to Boerne, there were people complaining about this big corporate entity coming here. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Those are the local guys done good. They're from Comfort, Kerrville, and they make good. They're all over the country. This is awesome.
Yeah.
We should welcome them back.
Yeah.
But when you get bigger, then you sort of become a little more impersonal, and people can start saying things about you, and it's hard as an individual. I think that push back against success comes from those who want to divide. Not necessarily everybody, but people are susceptible to that.
No.
Yeah.
Well, and I think another part of that, and we talk about this a lot, is just growth in general. People hate it. They hate change. They fear advancement of any sort.
People fear change.
Yeah. And so I think of any local business in Boerne, if it were to be so fortunate as to become a nationwide chain.
Yeah.
I'm reluctant to say a name, but I'm going to go ahead and say a name. Not picking on anybody, but I love Hamby's. I think everybody knows that. Like, I'm a fixture there, right? I eat my weight in hamburgers, right? I wouldn't mind if I could take one of my usual trips down to the valley and find a Hamby's down there where I can.
That'd be awesome,
right?
Yeah.
But I know that just as soon as they build that second location, there's going to be somebody in Boerne that says Hamby's just isn't as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
Once they went corporate, or once they started growing, they changed the formula.
Yeah.
People say that about Whataburger because now, I don't know, some group, private investment group in Chicago or somewhere owns them. And I'm like, I don't know. It still tastes the same to me, Yeah. Maybe something did happen. I don't know. Yeah. I haven't noticed it. I still like the product.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. People just like to stir things up.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. We live in a society now that has influencers whose only purpose is to influence people. They don't make things. They don't do anything. They just influence people. And I don't really understand that concept, but it's becoming big, and a lot of the influence is done through divide and conquer kind of stuff.
Yeah. Imagine the hate you're going to get when you open up the Comfort Bookshop. I remember Dale when he had just one store. He sold out and went to Comfort.
I have actually had people reach out to me from other towns saying, I've got a perfect spot in Fredericksburg or New Braunfels, and we need a bookstore, and come out there. And I'm like, oh man,
don't be
that's a lot of work.
Don't be a sellout.
Oh, that's right. I'd be corporate. That'd be terrible.
Awful.
Oh, dear. Okay, speaking of books, I'm going to bring out today's book, which is, for all of you patriotic folks, the Federalist Papers, which I think most of us have probably heard of, but it's sort of a lot of discussions on the Constitution when they came to pass it. And it's a great resource if you want to understand the thinking behind the Constitution. And some of us probably read it in high school or something like that. But
so if you did open up another store, you'd probably need a banker for financing, a real estate agent to find the property. Oh,
I would need all that
stuff. You got
stuff.
to work with the evil people.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Good thing I don't think they're evil. So I can work with them. I'm happy to do that. A final thought I want to leave with people is don't blame the inhabitants of the environment that you live in, such as developers and bankers and real estate people, of this environment that you have voted for and worked to create. Yeah. Because we've created this, and it's a good thing. If you want to do something different, that's fine. But it's the environment that we live in which encompasses freedom and the right to do what you can with what you want.
Great thought.
What you want with what you own. Something like that.
It was a great thought.
It was until
until you butchered
dribbled
it.
off the end there. Yeah, sorry.
And on that note,
thank you for listening to Ceasefire with Dale and Ron. And if you missed any of it, you can always go to BourneRadio.com and listen to our podcast or any of the other great podcasts they have there. We'll see you next week.